derivatives game?
It's fascinating in that you had 16 extremely bright, extremely bright people at the top of that. The average IQ would probably be as higher than any organization you could find among their top 16 people. They individually had decades of experience and collectively had centuries of experience in operating in the sort of securities in which the LTCM was invested, and they had a huge amount of money of their own up and probably a very high percentage of their net worth in almost every case up. So here you had super bright, extremely experienced people operating with their own money. And in effect, on that day in September, they were broke. And to me, that is absolutely fascinating. There was a book written, You Only Have to Get Rich Once. It's a great title. It's not a very good book. Walter Gutman wrote it, but many years ago. But the title is right. You only have to get rich once. And why do people, very bright people, risk losing something that's very important to them to gain something that's totally unimportant? The added money has no utility whatsoever. And the money that was lost had enormous utility, and on top of that, reputation is tarnished and all of that sort of thing. So that the gain-loss ratio in any real sense is just incredible. It's like playing Russian roulette. If you hand me a revolver with 6 bullets or 6 chambers and 1 bullet, and you say, pull it once for $1 million, and I say no, and then you say, what is your price? The answer is there is no price. And there shouldn't be any price on taking the risk when you're already rich, particularly of embarrassment and all of that sort of thing. But people repeatedly do it, and they do it whenever a bright person, really bright person goes broke that has a lot of money. It's because of leverage. You basically can't. It'd be almost impossible to go broke without borrowed money being in the equation. And as you know, at Berkshire, we've never used any real amount of borrowed money. Now, if we'd used somewhat more, we'd be really rich. But if we'd used a whole lot more, we might have gotten in trouble sometimes. And there's no upside to it. What's 2 percentage points more, in a given year or that year, and run the risk of real failure. But very bright people do it, and they do it consistently, and they will continue to do it. And as long as explosive type instruments are out there, they will gravitate toward them, and particularly people will gravitate toward them who have very little to lose but are operating with other people's money. One of the things, for example, in the LTCM case, and Charlie mentioned it in terms of derivatives, in effect there were ways found to get around and they were legal obviously, to get around the margin requirements, because risk arbitrage is a business that Charlie and I have been in for 40 years in one form or another, and normally that means putting up the money to buy the stock on the long side and then shorting something against it where you expect a merger or something to happen. But through derivatives, people have found out how to do that, essentially putting up no money just by writing a derivative contract on both sides. And there are margin requirements, as you know, that the Fed promulgates that I believe still call for 50% equity on stock purchases, but those requirements do not apply if you arrange the transaction in derivative form, so that these billions of dollars of positions in equities essentially were being financed 100% by the people who wrote the derivative contracts, and that leads to trouble. It doesn't. 99% of the time it works, but 83 1/3% of the time it works to play Russian roulette with 1 bullet in there and 6 chambers. But neither 83 1/3% or 99% is good enough when there is no gain to offset the risk of loss. Charlie?